To die for. Boy, I hear that phrase used a lot lately, and mostly by teenagers. Well, our traveling partners Ken and Katie Searl, and my wife Kathleen and I, hardly teenagers I might add, found these words very appropriate during our 10-day trip aboard the cruise ship Song of Flower, for it was truly a trip to die for. We embarked aboard Song of Flower at 6 p.m. on April 28, 1993 in Venice, Italy. You know Venice, that's the city of canals. But before you see the pictures of the trip itself, you just gotta tour that ship, for what a ship she was. The Song of Flower of Norwegian registry is a pretty small ship, actually, and which accounts a lot for her charm, in my opinion, incidentally. She has a total capacity of only 172 passengers, but with a crew of 144. Like other luxury cruise ships, she circles the globe yearly. So a passenger like myself can meet this ship just about anywhere in the world during the course of a year. And since we enjoyed this first cruise so much, I just bet that Ken and Katie, Kathleen and I, will do just that as often as we possibly can from now on. So let's take that tour of Song of Flower right now. We'll start on the top deck and work our way down. Believe it or not, that's Bosnia-Herzegovina right outside that window, just about 30 miles. And that ship in the distance there, well, that's our aircraft carrier, the USS Teddy Roosevelt. She's patrolling the no-fly zone over that war-torn country. Boy, it's hard for me to imagine a war going on so close when I'm surrounded in such luxury on board this ship. But right now, let's go back to Venice. Queen of the Seas, they call that city, and for really good reasons, as you'll soon see. Ah, Venice. What a beautiful place. Situated on 118 islands, its ancient buildings are perched precariously on pilings that are sunk deep in forever shifting sediment. It has 450 bridges spanning 177 canals. It's known the world over as the city for lovers. And practically everything is done by boat. Even our transportation in from the airport was by boat. And boy, there's no better way to enter Venice than on the water. So come along with Kathy and I. Come along with us into Venice. And this is St. Mark's Square, or just the plaza, as most people refer to it. It's pretty much the center of town. It was the center of government in ancient Venice also, and home to whoever was ruler of this famous city-state at the time. That clock there behind Kathy and Katie shows the time in both Roman numerals and Arabic, which is certainly understandable when you remember that the famous merchants of Venice got their wealth through trade between Europe and Asia. In fact, I noticed that most all Venetian architecture was a mixture of both East and West, mainly Eastern. Take St. Mark's Cathedral here as an example. It's definitely Eastern, and most everything in it came from somewhere else, not here. It mainly came from Asia Minor. All of the furnishings, most of them in fact, were either traded for, looted, or stolen by Venetians and ended up here. Even the body of St. Mark's himself. You know Mark, of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John fame. Well, that's him there in that crypt on the altar. His body was stolen around 800 AD or so in Alexandria, Egypt, by Venetian adventurers. It's been here ever since. And this is the Palo de Oro, reportedly one of Christendom's richest treasures. It's a masterpiece, all right, containing 2,486 precious stones like pearls and garnets and sapphires and emeralds, minus the ones, of course, that Napoleon helped himself to when he occupied Venice in 1797. And that's St. Mark's Cathedral. Pretty impressive, isn't it? We left Venice later on that afternoon. Kind of hated to leave so soon. But here we are approaching Song of Flower in another one of those water taxis. Boy, those boats could take you anywhere in Venice. After we were safely on board and unpacked, we joined our shipmates Ken and Katie topside for the embarkation party. We were finally on our way. The first stop, that was going to be the Greek island of Corfu, just off the Albanian coast. Corfu is known as the Emerald Isle on a turquoise sea. Emerald because of the abundance of vegetation, mainly olive trees with their knotted trunks and their twisted vines and limbs. Turquoise because it sits in the Ionian Sea, which is very famous for its rich blue-green color. Corfu is largely regarded as the island where Ulysses washed ashore and finally met his beloved princess. And it's where the beautiful Austrian Empress Elizabeth built her palace she called Achilleion to glorify her hero Achilles. You'll see pictures of her palace and a statue of Achilles with the famous arrow in his heel in just a few minutes. You'll also see a serene 13th century Byzantine monastery built high on a hill, and then our bus will wind its way back down the narrow road to the beach down below. Notice the olive trees beside the road along the way. Next, Ken and I will take you inside the fort, which guards Corfu town. Be sure to notice the 2 moats on our way in. And inside the fort, we caught a local high school band practicing marching. I really got a kick out of filming that. So right now, let's take a video tour of this beautiful island called Corfu. Good-looking moves there, girls, and in time with the music, too. Although Corfu has been occupied for thousands and thousands of years, even before Christ, the first known colony was established in 734 B.C. by the Corinthians. After that, the island was ruled by Rome starting in 229 B.C., the Byzantine Empire in 200 A.D., and the Normans in the 13th century. Venice ruled off and on during the 14th century, along with Turkey and Greece. In the 19th century, the French, and then the English, and then the Russians, they all took turns being in control. Italy and Germany occupied the island during the Second World War. But even with all these different cultures leaving their various influences on the island throughout the centuries, Corfu has remained true to its Greek heritage. Its present population is 115,000. Boy, kids are the same the world over. They sure weren't paying much attention to that band director either, were they? While the band continued to practice down below, Ken and I began to explore this old fort, first built by the Venetians. It was quite a structure. There was 2 moats to ford, then this tunnel to go through. All the while an invading army would be being fired on while trying to overcome these defenses. All I could think of was how many dead soldiers there would be in any invading army. All too soon it was time to leave this beautiful island of Corfu. Boy, I'll never forget that magnificent old fortress there on that hill. And to think that Ken and I actually had the run of the place for a while this afternoon. I'll never forget the statue of Achilles with the arrow through his heel either, or the old monastery high on the hill. There's a lot of history here on this island, and now I have a lot of memories of it too. But we got a lot of history ahead of us tomorrow too. We're going to go through the Corinth Canal tomorrow morning. Fortunately for us, Song of Flower is just narrow enough to make it through this famous waterway. It connects the Ionian and the Aegean Sea. Quite frankly, I could hardly wait. Here's a map of our route. Right up there, that's Corfu. We're going to sail down the Ionian Sea into these straits, right through here and down to Corinth. And right up there, that's the Corinth Canal. That's our destination. We'll be there tomorrow morning. Take a good look at this peninsula where Corinth is at. There it is right there, and there's the canal. Sparta, you've heard of that. Olympia, you've heard of that. Some very famous landmarks on this particular peninsula. There's Athens over there in the Aegean Sea. You can see by going through the canal, you cut off about 185 sea miles around this peninsula. So you can understand why, over the ages, all of the rulers wanted to make a canal at Corinth. And finally they did. There's the ancient city-state of Corinth, right there beside the canal. You know, it was the center of government for Greece even before Athens. And there's the canal itself, sitting in the morning mist. I'll tell you a little something about the canal as we go through it. It's a tidal waterway running along the isthmus of the same name, separating the Greek mainland from the leaf-shaped peninsula called Peloponnese. Until the 13th century, when ships were sturdy enough to afford stormy seas without fear, captains wishing to go from one side of the peninsula to the other had only two choices. They could either sail the 185 miles around the peninsula, or they could drag their ships on rollers across an ancient paved road laid along the isthmus. This latter was safer, of course, but it was far more energy consuming. The first attempts at construction of a canal were made in the 7th century BC by one of the 7 wise men of ancient Greece. Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar were among later rulers who considered the possibility of a canal, but never tried it. The first serious attempt was made in 67 AD by the Caesar Nero. He issued orders that a waterway be built, and to back it up, he imported 6,000 Jewish prisoners of war from Judea as the workforce. He even made a personal, if nominal, contribution to the endeavor by digging out the first clod of earth with a golden shovel. Legend says that the hammer was made from a Christian bone, as it was probably correct. The enterprise was well underway when Nero died, and when he did die, the project was quickly abandoned. There's even a sculpture on a rock that marks the spot where the legionnaires and the prisoners thankfully downed their tools when they were notified of Nero's death. It was not until the 19th century that the project to build a waterway permitting ships to take a shortcut through the isthmus was revived again. A French company started working on it in 1882. They were following the same route that was planned by Nero. Even this undertaking was not immediately destined to be successful, though. This firm went bankrupt, and the canal was finally completed by a Greek company in 1893. An awe-inspiring feat of engineering, the canal extends 3.9 miles from the Ionian to the Aegean Sea. Its depth is 23 feet below the water, with a width of 69 feet at the bottom and 81 feet at land surface. Its walls rise steadily and imposingly on each side. They themselves provide interesting viewing. They show horizontal rock stripes and strata from different geological eras. The canal is straddled by a road and a railroad bridge that you can see. These provide a different, if equally impressive, angle from which to survey the 130 feet of wall lining the waterway. Look closely at the bridge at a second here. You'll see a lot of people have stopped to watch us go under the bridge. Traveling along the canal is a fascinating experience. The passage seems narrower than it actually is. You can hardly believe that the ship will reach the other side without a scrape. But we took comfort in the knowledge that these pilots of this little Greek boat guiding our ship through are experts in their profession. They took their time. This 3.9 miles took us 45 minutes. He did. All the while we were approaching that bridge, I had been wondering whether our captain would blow his whistle when he got under it, and sure enough he did. After going under the bridge, Kathy and I, Ken and Katie, made our way back to the stern of the ship to get a last look at the canal. It had been quite an experience going through the canal, and we wanted to enjoy it just as long as we possibly could. We knew that our chance of ever being here again were pretty remote, that this was pretty much a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. In just a few hours, we were scheduled to dock off the Greek island of Mykonos. You might recognize that name. Mykonos is a famous resort island. But little did I know that we would spend one of our most memorable evenings of the trip this evening on the island of Mykonos. Yeah, this is Mykonos, with the yacht set, the jet set, painters, honeymooners, backpackers, and even nudists. They're all here on this wildly popular Greek island. But apart from its relatively recent role as the gayest of all Aegean resorts, breezy and barren Mykonos has always had genuine attractions. A delightful port town with photogenic churches and windmills, superb sandy beaches, and, yeah, lots of shopping. Kathy, shown here, is trying to lure me and especially my Visa card inside a jewelry store. She didn't succeed this time, though, for it was time to eat. And boy, eat we did. Just look at the size of those shrimp on that platter there. I couldn't tell you what else was on the plate. We couldn't even read the Greek menu even in English. So we asked the restaurant owner to order for us. That turned out to be a real smart move. And this plate was only one of the many courses, and they were all good. To get a sense of the atmosphere of this place, let's listen to the audio as well as watch the video for just a few minutes. Keep in mind that this was May 1st, a major holiday all over Europe. Actually, we were about the only foreigners in here. Most were Greek students on holiday from Athens. And as you can see and hear, Kathy was determined to get a record of their music.
But I want to hide over here. No, I'm going to hide over here, Katie. Can we come around this bush? It's okay if I take their picture. Yes. Oh, thank you. We're going to go ask. No, Katie. enjoyed it.
Even though we had finished eating long ago and were about to leave at this point, we didn't actually leave until close to midnight, for it was a very fun place to be, very Greek. And after all, Greece was what we had come all this way to see.
On the other side.
Enjoying your pear
I'm usually the one behind the camera.
I know, but are you enjoying your schmear pops or your pear schnapps? Your schmear pops.
Yeah.
Duane is having pear schnapps, schmear pops.
You've got a nice red thread here.
Yes.
Very good.
Got it.
You're focused.
Got it.
Great. Better than your eyes are? Are you going through your eyes or letting the camera do it, Duane?
No, the camera's got it.
Oh, if the camera's got it, then we're all right. You want some, Duane?
I don't think so, no.
You do, huh? Kathy?
I got you.
Ah, there you go. Oh, see? Wait a minute, that's my wife.
Oh, God. What?
What a night on Mykonos. But now, to keep up with where we've been and where we're going, let's look at our map again. We entered the Aegean Sea through the Corinth Canal here. We sailed over to Mykonos and left there at midnight. Now we're going to sail north to the Greek island of Lesbos. It's just off the coast of Turkey. Look how close we are to Istanbul at this point. We're going to go there next. But first, let's take a very brief look at Lesbos, a Greek island just off the coast of Turkey, populated as early as 3300 BC. Lesbos is famous for its artists, its poetry, its music, and its philosophy. A very rich heritage for such a small island. But rich it is, and mainly in its people, especially its women, who still follow the time-honored Greek Orthodox tradition that says that all widows must wear black until their own death. And boy, there's a lot of women running around in black on Lesbos. Here we were introduced to Greek coffee and goat cheese. Boy, I'm glad I ordered a Coke. It was like during all my picture taking, I kept on aiming the camera at the little old ladies in the background, just like this one. Isn't she cute? And there was a couple more outside. Just look at these. They're just enchanting.
Ah, se mi moče mi trabai za pikoš. Evi grit sam ti roftera. Ja, mama. Mi mi budjage, to mi treba. Ne.